at this. So I just want to repeat this once more. This is the a very basic and fundamental concept which you need to be very clear about. So oblique shock, till now we have studied in the last chapter normal shock, where the flow velocity is normal to the shock front. The difference in oblique is that it is at some angle to the incoming flow. Okay, let us say that angle is beta, and the flow gets turned by an angle theta. So this is the flow direction initially before the shock. Once it passes through the shock, the direction also changes to this V2. Initially, if you remember, when we talked about normal shock, the flow is approaching at 90 degree and it is leaving at 90 degree. There is no deflection of that flow, but that is what happens in oblique shock. Okay, now let us look at the velocity components. So this is V1 is the incoming velocity. Now let us say I rotate this by some angle such that V1 becomes like this. Okay, V1 is going like this, and basically I'm broken into two components, Vx and Vy. Okay, and my coordinate is basically parallel to this shock wave. So what you can visualize is, or you can imagine that this is a normal shock and Vx1 is the incoming air velocity. So what will happen? Vx1 will pass through the shock, and it is obviously it will be supersonic speed. Then the speed will reduce and it will go to subsonic Vx2. Okay, that simple relations what we have used for normal shock can be used here. Now what about Vy? So Vy is the parallel component. It is parallel to the shock and it will remain parallel, and the magnitude will also not change. Okay, so Vy will be the same and Vx is decreased. So this velocity vector will change direction, right? It from this it will go to this direction, and this angle, basically what the resultant velocity vector of the incoming flow, that angle with the oblique shock, that is called beta. I think that we have discussed what is shock angle and what is deflection angle, and this angle is deflection angle. Okay, I think some parts are not shown clearly here. Okay, I will describe them again. Let me first start with those revision. So now there's one problem with this figure. This theta is not shown properly. So that I am showing here. So theta is, if you look at this image, theta is the deflection. Okay, angle between V1 and V2. This is theta, right? So V1 is this and V2 is this. So the angle between them, not the full angle, but the angle between them, this is called theta. Is this clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So now we'll use simple vector relations. So we can say V1 is basically broken into x and y components. So it is a square sum of square and taken square root. So this is V1, and beta is basically tan inverse of this angle. Simple vector notations. So this beta is called shock angle, and theta is called flow deflection angle. How much the flow has deflected from its original path. That is flow deflection angle theta. Okay, how much the flow basically turns toward the shock. You can also call like that. So now you see that this flow is going in this direction, turns toward the shock. That is what is mentioned here, and Vx1 will obviously be more than Vx2 because it is passing through a shock, and Vy is equal to Vy. No change in that. Fine. So basically what we can do is we can obtain relation between upstream and downstream condition through using normal shock relations. Okay, so basically what we'll say is that Vx, let us say flow is coming at Vx and it is passing through a normal shock. So we can use normal shock relations to find conditions past this. And as I said, Vy will not change. So that we need to retain as Vy, and we can add both the vectors to get the resultant velocity V2. So it says superposition of uniform velocity Vy on the normal shock flow field does not affect the flow. Okay, that's what is written here. And only changes instead of this M1, this is for normal shock. For oblique shock, now you have one angle also. So you, instead of M1, you will use upstream component of Mach number, which is you have to denote, or you have to relate this angle also. So in this way, instead of writing M1, I will write MN1, which is normal, and this is M1 into sine beta. Fine. So this is the only change what we have to do to adjust normal shock relations for oblique shock relation, as we'll see in the subsequent slides. Yes, any question? Okay. So this is the density or velocity relation what we had for normal shock. Okay, last chapter we have derived this. Now I want to use this for oblique shock. So what I will do is, I will put, instead of Mach number, I will use Mn1, which is M1 sine beta, right? So same relation, just replace the M1 by M1 square sine beta, and you will get relation for oblique shock. The left, this relation is for normal shock, this one is for oblique shock. Is this clear? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Similarly, we can also calculate for pressure. Same way, I will replace all m terms with m into sine beta term. M1 square is equal to M1 square sine beta, sine square beta. That's all. Same way I can find temperature also by replacing all m terms with sine beta terms. So now we have relation for density change, pressure change, and temperature change across an oblique shock. So all the boxed relations are for normal shock. All these relations are for oblique shock. Okay, now what about the entropy? So same way entropy, for the entropy relation, I will replace M1 by M1 sine beta, and we have a relation for oblique shock. Okay, normal component of, so till now we are talking about before the shock. Now after the shock, behind the shock, this is the relation used to find the normal component of Mach number. Okay, I will not go into the derivation, but this is what you can use. Mostly at the end of this chapter, we will see that we also have tables for oblique shock. So we don't need to, let's say, remember all the relation. We can straight away go to those tables and we can find whatever values are required. Okay. Now M2, which is the resultant Mach number, can be related to normal Mach number by this relation. Basically, we are using this angle and taking sine of that, sine of beta minus theta, where M2 is V2 by A2. V2 is the resultant velocity, and Mn2 is Vx2, x component of V2 divided by the speed of sound. So these two Mach numbers are related in this way. Okay, now in the last two slides, what we see is that oblique shock relations depend only on component of velocity. Basically, they are only concerned with these components, M1 sine beta, which is the normal component. But if I am assuming that it is a normal shock, then this component has to be more than one, right? Then only it is a supersonic flow. Okay, what I am saying is that this is, let us say, oblique shock. The flow is like this, but we generally talk about, let me take another color. We generally take the normal component. This is the M1 sine beta, and then we use normal shock relations. So for this to be a normal shock, this has to be more than 1, right? Then only it is a normal shock. Then only shock will form in a supersonic flow. So that puts some limitations on sine beta, right? M1 could be more than 1, but sine beta is less than or equal to 1. So what will happen is, for minimum value of shock angle, okay, when the sine theta is minimum, then shock basically it behaves like a weak, very weak isentropic wave, or what we call as Mach wave. Okay, so across a Mach wave, we will also explore this in detail in later slides. Across a Mach wave, your flow properties will change very, there is a very negligible change. It will not be a strong change or a step change as you see, as you would expect for a shock, but it will be a gradual or very small change. Okay, but if you go for a maximum, so maximum value will be at beta is equal to pi by 2. So what will be sine beta for that? Sine pi by 2 is how much?
1.
Are there or not? 1. So when sine beta is 1, it means that m1 is more than equal to 1, and basically beta is the angle. So if this is 90 degree, it means it is a normal shock. So for minimum value of beta, we'll get a Mach wave. For maximum value of beta, we get a normal shock. Basically, normal shock you can think like a special condition of oblique shock. Oblique is the more general treatment. More general treatment we have for oblique shock, and normal could be a limiting case of that, where beta is 90 degree. Okay, so these are the limiting values. So beta could vary between sine inverse of 1 by m1 and pi by 2. So the minimum value is, it basically gives you the Mach angle or mu, and maximum angle is when it becomes normal. This is 90 degrees, so it becomes a normal shock. So that's what we discussed in the last slide also, that strongest wave possible will be for highest beta, which will be a normal shock, and the weakest will be Mach wave, which is for smallest angle. Basically, I'm just summarizing what we have written in text in the last slide. Okay. Now, in a supersonic flow, it is not necessary or not compulsory that shock must be there. Okay, for example, when you have a supersonic wind tunnel, there is no shock unless there is no other disturbance, no obstacle, or no walls are smooth. Then you will not see shock formation in supersonic wind tunnel test sections. On the other hand, Mach waves are generally present. Okay, whenever you have a supersonic flow, Mach flow is generally there. Even for this very standard condition, you will have some Mach wave. Okay, because any surface will have some roughness. This also I think we discussed in the last class. So any roughness, even at very small microscopic levels, that will produce Mach wave. If this roughness is very large, then it will produce a shock. Okay, so for any practical device, we'll see the formation of Mach waves, but shock may or may not be present. That is the difference between Mach wave and shock. So this is what I was trying to explain. Okay, this also did not came up. Okay, this is coming as an animation. Fine. Okay, so this is what I also explained in the previous slide. So this is V1, it is getting turned by V2. So we have beta is shock angle, theta is flow deflection angle. And in this, let me just correct this. So theta is basically formed between, you see, V1 and V2. Between that, theta is there. So similarly, we have V1 will go in this direction, and theta is up to here, not the full angle. This is what is theta. I will anyway correct in this slide, and then I will upload it. So this is theta is shown here for you. Okay. So now what we will try to develop some relations based on these angles. So tan beta, we know this is Vx1 and Vy. This will give you tan beta, and tan beta minus theta is Vx2 by Vy. that you can see from here. This angle will be tan beta minus theta. So based on these two, using some basically trigonometric relations, we can say that tan beta minus theta by tan beta is equal to Vx2 by Vx1. Okay, this is coming from simple trigonometry, no shock relations involved. So, anyway, so this tan beta minus theta, this is what we have in the last slide. Now Vx2 by Vx1 are basically the density ratios. Okay, and density ratio is what we have obtained from normal shock relation, replacing m1 by m1 sin square beta. So what we can do? We can say this tan term is equal to velocity, velocity equal to density, density ratio, and density ratio is equal to this term. So what I can do is I can relate this tan term to this term. This is what we have here. Okay. Now, if you do some further trigonometry, you can show that tan beta is equal to 2 part beta into this term. Basically, it consists of Mach number and beta terms, cos beta, cos 2 beta. Okay, this is called theta beta m relation. So you are relating theta is the deflection angle, beta is the, what is that, shock angle, and deflection angle. This is what is important for us. So shock angle, deflection angle, shock angle, and Mach number. So all three are related, and this is a very important relation for oblique shock, theta beta m relation. Okay, now if you go to two extremes, these extremes what we have discussed previously, that if beta goes to 90 degree maximum or minimum, then tan theta will be 0. Right? Now let us have a look how this varies on a plot. Let us look at a graphical plot how these angles are related. Okay, so this equation, if I draw it for different m values, m1 I can change, and your x-axis is the wave angle beta and y-axis is the theta. Okay, so for different beta, for different beta and different Mach numbers, you see the plots are for different Mach numbers. This is the value of theta. Fine. So as you can see, we have smaller, let us say, deflection angle for smaller Mach number. If you keep on it, let me draw a line. So let us say I want to get 10 degree. So for 10 degree, or let us say, so this is 30 degree wave angle, right? So for 30 degree, we have what is this Mach number 3? So Mach number 3, roughly it is 10. So Mach number 3 at 30 degree wave angle, I have 10 degree theta, and if I keep on increasing the Mach number, okay, let us say at 10 I have 20 degree. Let me explain it once more. So what I am saying is that with increase of Mach number, for the same beta, your theta also increases. That is also evident from this equation. Okay, and Mach number infinity is the limiting case. So this is the last plot. What do you get for that? Is this clear? Or not? So we will look at different regions of this plot as we move along. Okay. You people are here or not here? Let me.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. See, yeah, sometimes I'll not know whether you're not or I've lost connection. Fine. So this is basically how it looks graphically. If you plot this equation, this is how it will look. Now let us take some points. Okay. one interesting thing. What basically what assignment we have, that is what I'm going to discuss now. So what is the difference between these two images? One very basic difference apart from the shape. What about the shock? Can anyone say? What is the difference in these two shock images? Come on, I've already
Attached.
told you. Yes. Yes, someone was saying something.
Attached and detached shock.
Correct. So this is attached and this is detached. Right? Now will it is only because of the shape or anything else is there? So let us take a closer look. So what they have done is they have made this nose more rounded. So you see this is perfectly attached. It is suddenly changing shape and finally we have a detached wave. Okay. It may be, I don't remember. I think it is all for the same Mach number, if I'm correct. I need to check in this book. This book actually, they've just given mostly images, but they are also given some details about the condition. So I need to check, but if I remember correctly, they are all at the same Mach number. That is the most interesting part, that for the same Mach number, you get attached as well as detached wave. So it does not depend on Mach number. What it depends on? So if you look at this plot carefully, what you can see is that for a smaller theta, okay, so you see if theta is small, you have a solution for this. If your theta is, let us say, you have a Mach number of let us say 2, okay, so for 2 this is the maximum theta that you can get, 22 23 degrees something, okay. If for Mach number 2 you have theta higher than this, right? This is a theta. If you make this angle more than this, then what will happen? There is no solution possible for oblique shock. This is all for oblique shock, where your shock is forming a straight line, right? Because no solution is possible for that, then it becomes detached. You cannot have a straight oblique shock. So then the curve, it becomes curve and it gets detached if your theta is more than theta max, right? And this will not even not only for this projectile, but if you have a corner, if your corner is like this, if that angle is less than theta, it will be attached. If it is more than theta max, then it will be detached shock wave. So this is the basic criteria, and this will also depend on your Mach number. So for example, Mach number, let me draw it for you. For Mach number, let us say 1.4. What is the maximum theta you can get? Around 10. But we have, let us say, Mach number of what is this? 5. Let us follow some curve. Mach number 3. So if you have Mach number of 3, you can get theta to be around 32 degree, right? But if smaller Mach number, 10, if you have 10 degree, it will be detached. Is this clear? Yes? No? Not clear? Guys, you
Can
are
you
connected.
explain?
So when I am asking, is it clear? There could be only two answers, either yes or no, or you're not able to hear. So is this clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Fine, good. So this is what you have to know. I think 3 people who are involved. This is your basic premise, and you can look at some papers, and then we can discuss again. Basically, you can make two geometries depending on what Mach number. Let us say start with Mach number 2. So Mach number 2 is around 20 degree of theta. So you can have one geometry which has lower angle, let us say 10 degree. This angle is 10 degree. And you can have another geometry where angle is more than 20. How much? Let us say this is 40 or 50 degree, something like that. Okay, 40 and 10. You make these two geometry and then run with Mach number of 1.4. Oh, sorry, 2. Mach number 2, incoming flow with Mach number 2. One geometry is 10 degree, one geometry is 40 degree. Fine. And then you'll see two different behaviors. You'll see attached shock here and detached shock here. Okay. Moving on. So these are some comments on what we saw in the last slide. So also when theta is less than theta max, okay, if let us say any geometry you have any Mach number, let us say Mach number 2, you see for one value of theta, let us say for 15 degree, you take a straight line, you see there are 2 points where it intersects, this and this, right? So there are 2 beta values for the same theta. Is this clear or not clear? For any value of theta, we have 2 values of beta because this is like a parabola, right? So what is the difference or why there are 2 values? So the larger value is called strong shock solution. Okay, what is the larger? This one. This is called strong shock solution and the smaller value is called weak shock solution. Okay. So for a strong shock, the flow behind the shock becomes subsonic. And for weak shock, the flow behind the oblique shock still remains supersonic. Okay. So basically what will happen is that because you have 2 components. Okay, when you have flow is coming to a normal oblique shock, you have one parallel component, one normal component and one parallel component. So when it passes through that shock, this component will definitely become subsonic, okay, because it is behaving like a normal shock. But the other component will remain the same. So the resultant vector would be supersonic. That is the point. The resultant vector will be supersonic and it will form a weak shock. Okay, flow behind the oblique shock remains supersonic and except for a small range where theta is smaller than this region, basically the dotted region. Okay, where the zone is bounded by m2 is equal to 1. So this dotted line, what you see here, this dotted line, this is for m2 is equal to 1. So m2 is less than 1 here, which is a strong shock, and it is more than 1 here, which forms a weak shock. Fine. Okay. Now, for theta is equal to 0, or when beta is pi by 2, what it will represent? It will form a normal shock, right? It becomes perpendicular to the shock. Or when beta decreases to the limiting value of mu, there will be no shock, we will have Mach waves only. Okay, so either you get a normal shock, one extreme, another extreme is you get a Mach wave. And the flow turning angle is 0. Following 2 solutions are possible. Okay, again, this is just a repetition of what we have discussed. So either you have normal shock or Mach wave, that's all. So, animation is not working properly. So this is what we had derived previously. Now, in that relation, if some animations are missing. Anyway, so what we can do is, okay, so this is the relation we had in the previous slide, right? We have derived using, as I mentioned, some basically trigonometric rearrangement. We have relation between theta, beta and m, right? Now if this relation RHS you divide by this 2m1 square sin square beta, what will happen? This term will go, you will have gamma minus 1 divided by 2, right? Gamma minus 1 divided by 2, and this is 2 only, so it will have 2 will get cancelled. It will have 1 by this term. This is what is shown here, 1 by this term, and this will also be divided in denominator. So in denominator, gamma plus 1 will remain, and this will get cancelled, and instead of that, it will be this by 2. So this is what we have here. LHS remain the same, only RHS we just divide by this quantity, that's all. Now, if you do some rearrangement, basically you can take this and multiply it there, and take this and subtract it, then you will have this term is equal to gamma plus 1 into this multiply. Basically it multiplies with this minus this, so this will go into the RHS and it will be minus, right? Only I'm doing some rearrangement, no other complicated maths. So in this relation, if I take a reciprocal, so that I'm interested in m1 square m1 sine square beta. So if I take a reciprocal, this is that, and then now if you do some expansion, tan is basically a sine and cos. So I can write this RHS in terms of gamma plus 1. This will anyway remain the same. Tan term will become sine beta, sine gamma, and this. Okay, multiplied by m1 square. That is what is getting shifted there. 1 minus 1 is coming this direction, this side. Basically, these terms we have done some rearrangement. Now, if your theta, the deflection angle is small, so I can say, if you look at this, for small theta, what I can say about sine theta? It will also be small, or I can say sine theta is equal to theta for small thetas, and beta minus theta will become beta. This will be negligible. So I will have gamma plus 1, this is the same as here, to m1 square tan beta. Okay, sine theta will go out, it will become theta here, and sine beta by cos beta is tan beta. So what we see here is that for large m1, okay, when beta is small but m1 beta is large, then I can also say that beta is equal to gamma plus 1 by 2 into theta. So this will go and this will go. So we'll have sine beta will be equal to basically beta, and beta is equal to gamma plus 1 by 2 into theta. This is one approximation for large m1, but m1 into beta is also large. Okay, so some comments on what we have seen. So I'll just read through them and then we'll stop. So oblique shocks are basically compression funds. Okay, it compresses the incoming flow, and it also reduces the velocity, so it deaccelerates, and because of that your static pressure, temperature and density will increase. So velocity is decreasing, other quantities are increasing, or you see a step jump to higher values. That is the typical feature of a shock, that you see a step jump. It is not a gradual change but jump. Okay, now if the deacceleration is such that after your behind your shock the Mach number is still more than unity, then it is called weak shock, and if it is less than unity, okay, then it becomes strong shock. Now for practical cases, what are the applications of basically of gas dynamics, where we see that generally weak shocks are formed. Okay, unless you do some extra effort and make sure that strong shock is there, generally most of the practical examples we see that oblique shocks are getting formed. Okay, now for strong oblique shock we need to do some special effort. We need to, for example, engine air take, we need it to be strong shock so that the Flow after the shock is subsonic, and basically it helps us to design or to make the combustion easier. Okay, so at engine inlet, we basically try to change the back pressure or we make some design changes to make it a strong shock. Otherwise, it will be generally weak shock only. So this is the basically what I'm trying to highlight is naturally weak shock is preferred, weak oblique shock is there observed, and you can also have strong shock when you make any extra effort or extra design changes for that to happen. Okay, we will stop for now. Shock puller will start in the next class. Okay, let me stop recording.